Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Today I have a 13 card SGC reveal for you. There is no surprise here. I do know the grades, but I'm happy to be able to share these with you all. Some of these are cards that I put in for the purposes of potentially selling. Some of them are potentially cards I wanted to be able to upgrade in my collection. And some were just a little bit of an experiment. One that left me actually screaming out loud when I saw the score in joy, which is good for grading, right? As opposed to screaming in disbelief because you had a bad grade. All right, so without further ado, let's get this open. I do have two more cards coming under the basketball special that they're running. I thought this would all be put in one package, but it didn't. So the other one's not arriving today. It'll probably be here tomorrow, so I'll have a chance to show those off later. But let's go. Let's go ahead and show these cards off. Let's get it opened up first. So let me get that bubble wrap off these cards without damaging, obviously, the packaging. That would not be the goal of doing this. Here we go. Quite a bit of bubble wrap on this one because it came in a United States Postal Service box, which is great. You know, no problems there. I was happy to be able to get that. Sorry about all the noise it's making. For those of you who have sensitivities to bubble wrap, this is not the video for you, so turn down the volume until this is open. But here we go. They are now open. So I'll be able to take it out and remove the bubble wrap. All right, so let's get the rubber bands off and put out the little card holders we have available here. Sorry, I just knocked a couple over. That wasn't the goal of doing that. Here we go. As I mentioned, I got 14 cards. The cards span from the 1940s all the way through the early 2000s in 2001. So move the bubble wrap to the floor. Let's get these rubber bands off. It's kind of nice to get rubber bands to kind of store a lot of my top loaders and things like that from these orders. Just take away my invoice. All right, so the first one is a card you've seen on the channel. I picked it up back in, I think, January. It was my very first card from this set, and I wanted to be able to go ahead and get it encapsulated. It's a 1948 Leaf, Ewell Blackwell. You kind of move it over here, trying to remove some of the glare. There's a lot of glare on this one right now. All right, the Cincinnati Reds. I'll try a different light here and see if it's a little bit better. Yep, there we go. Create a little bit of shadow in the background, but it does kind of reduce a little bit of the glare. This came out as a 2.5 because it did have a little bit of paper loss on the back, which I'm not surprised with. So here's like the first card I was trying to upgrade. So I had an Allie Reynolds in a 4.5. I had a card that I submitted for grading that had better centering, and I thought it had a chance maybe of being better than the 4.5. So that's the one I have. And here it is. Came back a 4. So all I can try to think of is kind of looking at them side by side. The one that I had purchased off of eBay does have a little bit better edges and corners. The centering is not as good as the one we have here. The image is a little bit darker, so it seemed to kind of not fade as much over time, and that's why I think probably it got the higher grade, but this one's got the better back. Yeah, this one's got definitely a lot of staining on the back, so I'm kind of surprised one got the 4.5 and one got the 4, because I think they kind of look similar. If anything, I'd probably go with maybe the one I have, but I'll decide which one I actually put up for sale. This card's building off of the top run of Stay Unusual. It was the only card I didn't have that was already encased. It was a 1959 Baseball Thrills. Musial wraps out 3,000th hit from 1959 set. I thought this one might get a 5, and it did get a 5. So spot on. Very happy with this one. All right, the next one is another card I'm upgrading. So here is the one I had already, which is the 1961 Topps All-Star Rookie Card Cup of Ron Santo in a 5. Picked that up in a recent transaction. The one I had in my collection, I knew I was going to sell at that point once I acquired it. Had actually better centering, and I thought potentially it may have graded out a little higher. Well, just a half a grade higher, but it is graded a 5.5 as opposed to a 5. So with the Allie Reynolds, we're a half grade lower than the one I had. With this Ron Santo, we're a half grade higher, so you can't go wrong with that. All right, so here's a card I picked up over 20 years ago for 99 cents. Probably at the time because it wasn't in great condition. But because people have been collecting all-star rookies, which is not a new thing, but a lot of people are trying to be able to acquire ones and put them in their collection from the 60s and 50s and 40s, I thought it was worthwhile to just kind of get it encapsulated and see if I wanted to sell it. And it was the Lou Brock rookie card from 62 Tops. I thought this was going to get authentic at the best, maybe a 1 because it's a real beater. It came back a 2.5. Which, you look at these side by side, they're both 2.5s, but as we look at the condition of the two cards, I would take the E-Well every day, and I would say they would be graded higher than this one. So this one kind of threw me off a little bit because these corners are rounded, it's off center, the surface has got some scratches on it, but hey, 2.5 is good for my purposes, considering potentially reselling it. I put that E-Well off in the corner. Another one, this one's actually going to be an upgrade too. So let me show you that one that I have in my collection currently. It's the Ferguson Jenkins in a PSA 4. I had one that I thought probably would come off of 4 as well. So I was surprised when it came back a 5. So I'm pleasantly surprised it came back a 5. I think mine has a little bit better centering on the front and maybe a little bit better corners and edges, at least the one I had submitted and I had in my collection for years. Looking at them side by side now, so maybe it was worth at least a half grade or grade or more. It is off center on the back, whereas this one's got a little bit better centering and the color is not as faded on one versus the other, but yeah, I'm pretty pleased being able to come back with a 5 on that one. So cool. We got the Ferguson Jenkins there. All right, put that over here. Move Allie. Move Fergie. All right, the last one before I go over, I have 6 cards from actually the same set that I'm going to show you in a minute. This was a pack pulled autograph. So when I first started getting back into collecting after a brief spell for probably about 8 years, my friend for my birthday bought me 2 hobby boxes of 1998 Bowman. And in the second pack I opened up, I pulled out a pack pulled autograph, and it was later on, he became a Hall of Famer. So I wanted to submit it, just kind of see what it would come back as. I thought the card looked good, and I thought the signature looked good, so I thought it potentially would get grades on both. Well, it only got graded on 1. It got graded on the card itself, which is a 9.5, which is great, but the autograph didn't come back, so it was not a perfect 10. Looking at it now, I don't know what his signature looks like in other cards. It is a little smeared right here, but it just looks like that's kind of how he signed on these cards. Still pretty cool to be able to pull this out of a pack, especially like the second pack of a box I opened. It was a really nice gift at the time. I think we pulled 3 autographs out of the 2 boxes. This was the only guy who did anything in his career, let alone the only Hall of Famer that I was able to pull out of that box. So I was really pleased to be able to pick up that one. So we'll move Stan the Man over here in a minute. And we'll put Scott Rowland there. All right, so the next 6 cards are going to be all from the same set, cards you've seen on this channel before. It's going to be, so I'm going to take these down now as we kind of go through them since they're all kind of the same set. It's going to be from the 2001 top set. It's going to be those numbered gold parallels out of 2001. As I've mentioned on this channel before, the gold foil on the cards is so prone to being dented and chipping that if you're lucky to be able to find cards that are in good condition, often these cards, when they were printing them, were not very well centered. So I took it upon myself to be able to put in 6 cards, one of which I had a duplicate of, which inspired me to put in 5 more that I thought looked in pretty good condition. The highest graded card I have in my collection so far from that set is an 8.5 from an SGC. But I was hoping I might be able to get a 9 or more, potentially on some cards. Let's start with the one I already had a copy of. This is the #1 card in the set. It's Cal Ripken. It was his final season. His final Topps release was in 2001. So this is a PSA 7. And I wasn't sure what I would get back on this next grade. Let me move this camera just a little bit, got a little off center there. And I submitted the one that I had that was ungraded, and it came back at 8.5. Centering top to bottom is not ideal in the Cal Ripken. It's probably centered better on this one, but the grade is much higher. I do like the way that they add the serial numbers on the top here for the cards as opposed to PSA. I think it's a nice little touch. Here's the back of the card. Just a really nice copy of this card. And I'm pretty happy it came back in 8.5. So I am going to probably put this one up for sale at some point in the near future. If you're interested, just kind of reach out to me. I'll let you know when it's post, or if you want to be able to catch me before I get it up on eBay, feel free to do so. I am going to hold off on this one because it's the one that made me scream. Let's kind of go with some of the lower grades, and then we'll get to the higher grades I was able to pull out of this order. So this one, it was a high value card that I put in. I thought because of that, I thought it might be kind of interesting to have it graded. It would add a lot more value to the card too. And I was curious what it would come back as. So it's the Mark McGwire card, which was his final season 2 and his final card. Pretty iconic image here, and it came back in 8. There are other copies that are graded higher, including I think a 9.5 of this card. But I'm pretty happy with it overall. You can see it really kind of captures some of the shine here as I get closer to the light. Here's the back. Here's something that didn't stand up too well. It says Mark won an ESPY as the 90s Player of the Decade. So that ESPY award didn't hold up all that well, considering he got caught up in the steroid scandal, but still a very, very popular player in the hobby, very popular player in Cardinal fandom. So I'm happy to be able to kind of have that one in the collection now, graded as an 8. So this is one I thought was perfect. And I thought it had a good chance at a 9 or higher. So I was really surprised when the Mariano Rivera came back in 8.5. Although, like I said, I didn't have a card that was higher than 8.5. So to have one come back 8.5 was, I guess, not to be unexpected. So that was a pretty nice return on that one. So I'm happy to have the Mariano Rivera coming back in an 8.5. The next 3, I'm going to remove this and just put these in the center because I'll kind of replace these, are kind of the real big surprises. We're going to start with saving the highest grade for last. So let's start with Pedro Martinez. Came back a 9. This is the highest graded example card that they have in SGC of this. In fact, I don't know if other ones have been submitted, but there are other cards at PSA that have a 9. I believe there's one other PSA 9. So this is like one of 2 copies that are 9s and higher in existence at this current time until they submit more cards, obviously. So I'm really thrilled to be able to get this one back in a 9. And this is what I thought was perfect too. I thought he and the Rivera looked very similar, so I was kind of surprised when that one came back 8.5 and the other came back as a 9. So really happy to have the Pedro Martinez. I will say this isn't getting me to a point where it's encouraging me to be able to submit some more cards in the future here. The next one is also a 9, and this is also an all-time great player. This is Tony Gwynn. 2001 was his last season. You know, he has a card in the 2002 set. So he has one more final gold card. There are none at PSA or at SGC that are graded higher at this current time. This is the highest graded example that you're going to be able to find, at least between those 2 companies. I didn't look at BGS. Just a beautiful, beautiful card of one of my all-time favorite players. I don't have a lot of his stuff, but he's one of my all-time favorite players. Let's leave Mark in the middle for a minute and take down the Mariano Rivera. And let me show you the card that made me scream. So before I begin, so they've never graded a 10. They've never graded at 10 at SGC. There are PSA 10s. And you can look at the pop reports if you really want to get a good idea of how difficult it is to be able to grade these cards. Look up the Ichiro rookie and look up the Pujols rookie, and you'll see that getting 9s at PSA or 10s out of the distribution they've graded so far, it's very, very difficult. Same thing at SGC. So if you're looking at things that got 9s or 9.5, it's very uncommon. To be able to get a 9.5, SGC has only graded 6 cards. I did a little research on this prior to this order that came back with a 9.5. So I was beyond belief thrilled when I saw this grade come up on a Hall of Famer, no less a former MVP. We're not talking about Pujols or Ichiro at this point because I think I would have lost my mind. But we do have a 9.5 copy of Chipper Jones. 9.5. This is only the 7th card from the 2001 Topps Gold Parallels to receive a 9.5. It is the highest graded copy in existence between PSA and SGC. It's crazy, guys, because like even like a PSA 8 of his back in May sold for like $82. So like I don't know how much these things would sell if I actually put them up for sale, which I'm not. And I'm really encouraged to be able to kind of submit some more cards in the future from this set and see how they do, especially the Hall of Famers, as I want to be able to kind of get those eventually all capsulated. There were some other great looking ones that I kind of passed on, at least for this order. So I have a lot of other ones I could pick in the future that, who knows, you know, maybe I'll have some more 9s or God forbid, another 9.5 or higher in the order would be fantastic. So that is it, man. Like, I'm super thrilled to be able to kind of show these 3 cards to you. I'm happy they're finally in my possession. Got my scores Friday morning, got them delivered here on Monday. The turnaround, if in case you're curious, I put this in the mail to SGC 2 weeks ago on Saturday, and I got it back here on Monday, so just over 2 weeks. You can't beat that for the price. I think it's a great grading company, great customer service, and high quality slabs, in my opinion. I know some people think they're a little clunky. I don't. I think they're really cool, especially what they do with the serial cards. I love that they put the serial number on there. And wow, I mean, like, these 3 cards made the order for me. Beyond belief thrilled. And I will be back soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and take care.